Hi, everyone. Ed Bixby here from the Global Green Burial Alliance, and this is Spotlight Now. Today, I'm here with Hunter Beattie of Endswell Funeral Home. Hunter Beattie is a co-owner and co-founder of Endswell Funeral Home, an eco-friendly funeral home in Hillsborough, North Carolina. We're really excited to hear what's going on down there in North Carolina, Hunter. So why don't we get started by learning a little bit about the history of Endswell Funeral Home and what inspired its creation?
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me on. So in January 2022, I was sitting next to a cemetery in Carrboro, North Carolina, a town right next to Chapel Hill. And I read an article that Desmond Tutu chose aquamation rather than cremation. I'd never heard of it before. I was actually waiting on a friend near the cemetery. I wasn't there out of some morbid curiosity, but coincidentally, someone was getting buried at the cemetery. It was a shiny pink metal casket. I'm sure they had been embalmed. The casket was going to be lowered into a concrete vault. And I looked at the manicured lawn. I looked around the cemetery and realized that no one living around it was related to the people buried there. And I kept reading article after article about Desmond Tutu's decision to choose aquamation, this environmentally friendly alternative to fire cremation. But the articles also were very critical of conventional burial practices and the funeral industry, the carbon footprint, land use, and they presented two options moving forward, which were green burial and aquamation. So I got home, told my wife about Desmond Tutu's decision, talked to her about aquamation nonstop for 2 weeks. And 2 weeks after reading the article, we put a deposit on a $300,000 aquamation machine without any background in the industry. No idea where we were going to put this 6,000 pound machine. Never having signed a death certificate or spent much time around dead bodies. It was a wildly impulsive and reckless decision, but it worked out really well. We opened Endswell that year in October of 2022 as an aquamation facility, the first in the Triangle. And then about a year and a half ago, we expanded to start offering natural burial when we became a full funeral home.
Hunter, I find if you already didn't know this, but you probably did, it's so amazing how so many of us, people in the natural burial, the aquamation, the green movement, let's say, have just kind of stumbled into it. Your story, it was meant to be. It might have been a haphazard decision, but I can see the enthusiasm when you speak about it. So I'm glad that you were able to have that experience. And knowing that you do the aquamation, I imagine you probably offer other ranges of services. I know you have a lot of eco-friendly funeral options available. So, you have aquamation. I know you do the natural burial. Could you tell us a little bit about like what interests you when it comes to those two different methods? What is most interesting to you about natural burial, let's say, and aquamation?
Yeah, so I think, my background was in nonprofit work and renewable energy. Same with my wife. When we got married, we were working at an educational nonprofit, writing grants. We're very active in our community. We've been here about 20 years. And when I read the article, it just seemed like an industry worth disrupting. The maroon carpet and the floral wallpaper, and I went to a funeral home recently, one that I really like, and they had a Chrysler minivan, and they had put this weird plastic cover on the back windows with this silver emblem, this insignia. And it was like, well, shoot, you guys ruined a perfectly good minivan with this kind of tacky crap that's supposed to look fancy, but it doesn't look fancy. It looks tacky, and that is my impression of the funeral industry. These mass-produced urns made in China with angels' wings and dolphins kissing, and an American eagle soaring on the flag for the veteran, but again made in China. So early on, it was just like, this is an industry worth disrupting, and one way of doing that was by offering something totally different, unique, weird aquamation. but something that's better for the environment. So I think that given my nonprofit work and the work in renewable energy, it aligned perfectly with offering something that, you know, uses 1/10 of the energy, doesn't produce toxic and carcinogenic gases. And then I've worked on a lot of farms. My wife and I homesteaded and had a mini farm for a while. So natural burial and that connection to the land, giving the body back to the earth, like the majority of people on the planet do, and pretty much all of our ancestors did prior to the Civil War, that felt right as well. So, you know, we do offer other services. We do offer traditional burial and cremation. We've really learned this is about meeting people's needs. We're not casting judgment. You know, someone walks through our door, they're going through one of the worst experiences in their life. And if cremation is what resonates with them, you know, it's not like I have had no carbon footprint in my life, right? I've flown all over the world. I get my fair trade coffee every morning at the local coffee shop that comes in from Ethiopia, the other side of the world. So I don't act like we're saving the planet by offering cremation or aquamation and natural burial, but I think that, you know, for a lot of people, this decision is their last act on the planet. It's an opportunity to choose something that reflects their values and their legacy, and it's meaningful for our clients. But we do offer everything because we want people to have choices in this.
Absolutely, and I love what you said because it's absolutely true. I mean, you know, unfortunately, the funeral industry has become stale. Let's say, you know, 100 years of the same processes have led to a place where people really aren't embracing it anymore. And I think that you're smart and you're ahead of the curve. And I think other funeral people, you know, funeral professionals are seeing that. I think they want to feel more, let's say, embraced by the community itself. So I think it's wonderful what you're doing. And you know, I know quite a bit about alkaline hydrolysis, and but I don't know how much our viewers know. So you know, when you offer an aquamation, which is a quite unique process, could you tell the viewers a little bit about what that process looks like, so maybe they could, you know, ponder or consider or investigate this option?
Yeah. So, you know, cremation involves 1800-degree temperatures in a giant oven lined with fire brick. And the goal of cremation and aquamation is to remove the soft tissue, the part of the body that's going to break down after death. So something that is essentially shelf stable, the bone dust, can be returned to the family. So aquamation, also known as alkaline hydrolysis, rather than using high heat and fire powered by natural gas, we're using an alkaline solution, water and potassium hydroxide, which circulates around the body and gradually converts the carbohydrates, fats, and proteins into sugars, salts, amino acids, and peptides. That is shockingly similar to the way our bodies break down in the soil during natural burial. You know, when we die, in the absence of cellular respiration, our cells become really acidic, and that's the precursor to decomposition. So we are pretty much immediately using this alkaline solution to mimic the early stages of decomposition, of the natural breakdown of our body as it would occur in the soil, but we're using the alkaline solution to do it. And most people choose it who work with us because of the environmental benefits, right? By not burning the body, there are no toxic or carcinogenic gases emitted. It uses 1/10 of the energy. But then we also have other people who choose it because they think it's a gentler process. You know, we're using much lower temperatures. I think there's a lot of religious and cultural symbolism with water and peace, rebirth, life, vitality, the baptism, whereas fire has other, you know, more negative connotation, you know, culturally and religiously. I did not anticipate that 20 to 30% of our clients would come in and be like, you know, I've always thought of fire cremation as burning in hell, and this is like the baptism. And I didn't think about that, you know, but we've had firefighters work with us. You know, they fought fire with water their whole lives. We've had, you know, people who have sailed all over the world, or hippy dippy Pisces astrological signs. This is just another option for people, and it really does resonate with people to choose something different that might reflect their values or their uniqueness as an individual. But yeah, that's really the science of alkaline hydrolysis. We're just using an alkaline solution to accomplish the same goal. that the high heat and rapid evaporation and combustion that occurs in the cremation process.
I appreciate you explaining that because a lot of people don't truly understand what that process looks like. And I do agree with you. It is a much gentler process. And I like that perspective you just given because, just like even with natural burial, a lot of times people would just assume that people who are choosing it are, super environmentally conscious or this, that, or the other. But they're everyday people who just say, I really didn't want that, and a flame based cremation, not only are you're using those fossil fuels, but it is probably, well, not probably, it is a harsher, process, let's say, as to how it's done. So I think that's a great way for them to have a mind's eye to understand that. And knowing that you guys offer natural burial, so what would a process with Endswell look like, and how might it differ from a traditional service if someone comes to get a natural burial offering from from Endswell Funeral Home?
Yeah, so, like any funeral home, we're available 24/7. We'll get the call. We'll send our transportation team and take someone into our care. And for many of the families that choose to work with us for natural burial, they actually take part in the shrouding of the body here at Endswell. So we'll light candles. The family may help us wash the body in our viewing room, put essential oils on their loved one, and then we'll shroud the body in cotton or silk. We started using silk because silk is protein based and breaks down during the aquamation process. So most aquamation providers, I think every other aquamation provider in the US, they use a biodegradable plastic bag to aquamate someone. So that's how you're leaving your current form, your body, you're leaving in a Ziploc bag, basically. And that felt a bit undignified. So we got permission from the funeral board to use silk. So we ordered raw Dupioni silk. It's not super shiny, doesn't look tacky. It looks really natural and beautiful, and it breaks down during the aquamation process. So that's what we do for aquamation. But our natural burial clients will either choose the silk or the organic muslin cotton, and we have yards of that. So rather than buying a pre-made shroud, which is what most funeral homes will do, we have yards of silk and cotton ready to wrap someone, and it looks beautiful because it's to their size. It's fitted for them. And then we'll put North Carolina wildflowers on top of the shroud. We have a special pine carrying board with jute or hemp rope handles that we build in-house. And when we transport to the cemetery, the family will often help us remove the pine board with the shrouded body from our vehicle, carry over to the grave, and then we'll use ropes to lower the carrying tray into the grave, usually with the family's help.
Oh, that's beautiful. I mean, as you're giving me that in my mind's eye, I just envision all the times that we've done something so similar to what you're doing, and people need to know that that this is available and how special it really is. You're creating a lasting memory out of what could what is a tragic moment, but also a beautiful moment to celebrate a life that was lived. So I love it. And I love the fact that you've told the viewers that, you can personalize, you can make these products yourself. I think that's really
Right.
important to know. It will live with you forever to know that you gave that final act of kindness to your loved one. So kudos to you,
Yeah,
Hunter,
I
for what
mean,
you guys do.
you mentioned earlier a moment ago that, some of the traditional funeral homes are kind of coming around to natural burial. And I do find that that's true. But at the same time, there's a lot to change about the experience to accommodate natural burial and the needs of the people who are choosing it. You may not want a super shiny hearse at a conservation cemetery. You want a cotton or silk shroud. You want wildflowers, not roses from, a grocery store and that look dyed, you know. So there's kind of a lot to do to really meet the needs of the natural burial clients. We're not the best fit for a lot of people who want traditional burial. We
Right.
offer it to accommodate everyone's needs. We have a pitch on our natural burial page, a very non-judgmental pitch that, have you considered natural burial? You're interested in traditional burial, but if you're okay not embalming your loved one, if you don't need a shiny metal casket, this is the original traditional burial. So maybe you should consider. We're happy to talk to you more about it. So it's a way of introducing people to natural burial who may not be familiar with it already. But and then, one thing I should note, we're very lucky to have Blue Stem Conservation Cemetery in our area. Have you heard of them, Ed?
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
go
it's
ahead.
an 87 acre nature preserve and conservation cemetery, one of only 13 conservation cemeteries in the country. And they are 15, 20 minutes from us and opened about the same time that Endswell did. They didn't know we were opening. We didn't know they were opening, but we now do the majority of their natural burial, and we're usually the perfect fit for their clients because of our proximity, but also the way we support home funerals, bringing Techna ice to someone's home so they can have a home funeral and shroud in the home, or offer on-site shrouding here at Endswell. So, we've really learned our burial techniques from them. So it's been a great partnership.
Well, and and it takes a village, and I like the concept that you're using education as as the tool. I mean, because it's not that people are opposed to a natural burial; they just don't even know it exists. So I think
Yes.
that gentle nudge to, hey, consider this, because unfortunately, in this consumer-driven world that we live in, people don't like to talk about death. They just kind of go in and they go the direction of whatever they're pointed. And I think by giving them that ability to say, "Hey, wait a minute," and then they'll think back, and I tell people all the time that we as human beings, possess the ability to care for our loved ones in death. It's in our DNA. We just forgot how to do it. But
Yeah.
as we're reintroduced, it comes back very naturally. So, you having that partnership is a beautiful thing, and that would lead me into my other question. Knowing this now that that you have this nice little collaboration, I imagine you've seen a real increase in interest in your community. How have they embraced it? Like, how does you're in the Triangle area? What are they thinking about aquamation and natural burial and things like that?
Yeah, it's kind of exploded actually, because the option is available, right? So many cemeteries don't offer natural burial. So for a very long time, even if someone were interested, it was difficult to find. And then if the option isn't available, people aren't going to learn about it. They're never going to choose it. I mean, when we opened, no one had heard of aquamation. So the first year and a half was brutal. This had all the stresses of opening up any other type of business, a coffee shop, but then there was the death care element on top, that 24/7 emergency services component. But then we were offering something that no one had heard of. So I think honestly, the only reason we're in business is that we offer cremation now, right? So we get the call about cremation. That allows us to introduce people to aquamation. Probably 80% of the people switch to aquamation once they hear about it. But I think because of my nonprofit background, and because Blue Stem's a nonprofit, and because we're both introducing the community to something that they're not familiar with, we have to focus on education and community outreach in a way that other funeral homes and cemeteries don't. They're not used to doing it. So we go out in the community, we participate in 80 to 100 events a year. Public libraries, senior centers, continuing education, continuing care, retirement communities, farmers markets, and music festivals. We set up booths and educate the community about do-it-yourself funerals, home burial, psychedelics at end of life, medical aid in dying, segregation in the funeral industry, the role of death doulas. We just come up with all of these presentations and panel discussions, and we facilitate it. We introduce the panel. It builds brand awareness, and we get the word out about Endswell and about aquamation and about this other way of doing things, kind of the good death movement. Let's talk about this and encourage open and honest conversations about death and dying, because it happens to everyone. And by talking about it, it becomes a little less scary. It's a huge gift to your family and your next of kin to have a plan in place. And then these conversations about aquamation and natural burial very naturally lead into conversations about how you want to be treated at end of life, what medical intervention you do and do not want. Do you want to write your own obituary in advance? So we're really trying to build a community around this, and our death cafes have a very loyal following. We had to start 2 death cafes at Endswell because we were getting 50 people showing up to one. So now we have 2 every month. We have a documentary series every month, a speaker series. It's great. There are a lot of people interested in this. It's just that the option wasn't available up until now.
Well, I love it. I'm telling you, you're doing great work, and that's exactly what we need to inspire others. And like you said, it's not only a unique, interesting conversation once someone allows themselves to talk about it, but it's a very intimate one, because as they start to look at their own life, their own loved ones, and ponder, that's when they start to say, there's a better way. So you guys are doing wonderful work. You know, I at the end of our conversations, I always love to ask this. I can only imagine, because you guys are setting the world on fire. Where do you hope to see Endswell? Let's say in 5 to 10 years, in your mind's eye, where would you like to be with all this wonderful things that you're doing now? I can only imagine. It sounds to me like you've already reached that pinnacle in a few years that you've been doing it. But where would you like to see Endswell in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, that's tough. My wife and I, after we got married, we backpacked all over the world. And what I didn't realize at the time, I'd wanderlust. It was kind of a grass is greener, not happy in North Carolina. North Carolina sucks. I need to leave here. I want to move. I want to live in Istanbul. I want to live in Bordeaux. And I felt that way for years, but it was my own inner turmoil and just a lack of connection to the community. I wasn't really doing anything. Even the nonprofit work was just staring at a computer screen every day and fulfilling federal grant requirements. So this has really kind of filled this existential void that I've had for years. And I feel more deeply connected to my community than ever. So I have to balance the fact that I love just having this one little Endswell location where my wife and I work every day and have a team that we love and we host these events. I have to balance that with, you know, the notion that an Endswell could do great anywhere, could do great outside of DC, Amherst, Boulder. We help clients all the time. Their parent has died in Chapel Hill and they live in Boulder, and they come to us and they're like, "Oh my God, you have an urn gallery. You have 300 urns made by local artists, and this doesn't feel like a funeral home. This feels like an art gallery. Where's your Boulder location? Where's your San Francisco location?" I don't know, man. I mean, someone's going to do it at some point. Maybe it'll be us, but this industry it needs to be disrupted. Bringing death care back into the hands of the family, the community, educating people about their options. Someone needs to do it. There are great groups out there like Caitlin Doty, Order of the Good Death. Katrina Spade with Recompose is very active. There are other kind of modern, eco-friendly funeral homes, but they're few and far between. I could see Endswell with some funding trying to expand, but I don't want to lose our authenticity. For the same reason that we provide such quality care to our clients, we're not scalable like a high volume, crematorium. You can open up a high volume crematorium anywhere, and the whole point is that they're affordable, low quality of service, quick turnaround time, cheap, helping 200 people a month. That's never going to be Endswell. That's not our brand. That's not what we care about. So we're not as scalable as these other funeral homes. But I would love to see us exist in other communities and help other communities and bring education and awareness about alternatives, to other parts of the US.
And no doubt you will. And just to let you know, Hunter, we're cut from the same cloth. I started very similarly as you did, and 20 years later, we're in 15 locations across this country. But what you said in this conversation that resonated with me was the fact that you wanted it to stay, you know, as true to the mission as possible.
Yeah.
And every time someone were to walk into maybe a future Endswell, it feels exactly the same, with the same respect, the same treatment. and it can be done. And I know that if you guys have the desire and the ambition, you'll do it. But if you're happy where you're at, you're really, you're really serving and you're really doing it all at the moment. And that's, hey, look, in life, you've lived it. If you can do what you love, consider yourself lucky, because not many people do.
Yeah.
So listen, we at the Global Green Burial Alliance really appreciate the work you're doing. You've really enlightened us today as to what's going on down in your area. Anyone who would like to learn more, visit endswellfuneralhome.com. I have a feeling, Hunter, we're going to see more of you. We would certainly love to possibly, and I'll speak to you later about including you into some future programming for the GGBA, because it really is about the message that's delivered. And it sounds to me like you guys are delivering a positive one. So thanks for joining us today, Hunter.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ed. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.